Hey, Jessica, so I'm going to go ahead and do this problem real quick, and then I'll show you why the answers are different. Here is your answer. Here's that. And so let me do the problem real quick and then show why it's different. So we got to take the derivative. I'm sure you know. So the derivative of this 10 comes down. So we get 480 x to the 9, subtract 1 from the power, right? And then okay, now this, this is a product rule. So we got this guy times this guy. Product rule. So you got to do this guy first. So the 64 comes, what's 764? I don't know. That's 420 and 28. 424, 48. X to the 63. Subtract 1 from the power. Y, because it's not the y's term, plus, and then the 7x to the 64 just sits there, and it's the y's term, y prime. That makes sense. They take turns. So this guy goes first and the y just sits there. Because these are two functions multiplied, right? These are two functions multiplied. We got to do the product rule. So this guy goes first, and the y just sits there. And then the 7x to 64 just sits there, and it's the y's term, which is y prime. Okay? And then plus, now this guy. And how do we do that? So this, the 9 comes down. Remember, so for y, we just do the normal thing, 9y to the 8th, but then remember y prime, right? Equals, and then 0, right? Derivative of 56 is 0. So then we have two terms of y prime. This has y prime, that has y prime. So I'm just going to jump these guys to the other side. When they jump over, become negative. You know that. So we get 7x to the 64y prime plus 9y to the 8th y prime equals. So when these guys jump over, they become negative. So negative 480 x to the 9th and negative 448 x to the 63y, right? This guy jumped over. Okay, so now factor out the y prime. So I'm going to go, okay, y prime. This leaves 7x to the 64 plus 9y to the 8. Right, because that y prime could go boom, boom, go right back, go right back. Okay, so this is negative 480 x to the 9th minus 448 x to the 63y. Okay, and now divide. Um, boom and boom by the 7x to the 64 plus 9y to the 8. 7x to the 64 plus 9y. That cancels out. So there's our answer right here. Now, notice this negative is on the top, negative is on the top. Now, your question was a good one. I know what I did pay attention to your question. You said, Mr. Aaron, isn't a negative on the top like negative 1 over 2? Isn't that the same as just the negative being in the front or the negative being in the bottom? You're right. Those are all the same. Negative in the top, whoops, that was a mistake. Negative in the top or the front or even the bottom, it's all the same. But, that's the same, but there you got to be a little careful because if you have two things in the top, say I have like um, 2 plus 3 over 10 or whatever, okay? And I put a negative in the front, and I say, oh, I just want to put that on the top. You'd have to put it on the top with both. You see, if it goes to the top, it has to go to the top and hit everybody. Right? How do you know? Well, those are clearly the same, huh? This is negative 5 over 10, right? 2 plus 3 is 5. And this is what? Negative 2, negative 3, negative 5 over 10. See how that's just true? Whereas if I only put the negative on the front guy, only put it on the negative 2 and left this plus 3, that would not be the same, would it? Negative 2 plus 3 is only 1/10. That's not the same as this. So the moral of the story is yes, negatives in the front can go to the top, but if there's two things or more in the top, it has to go to all of them when it goes to the top. That's the mistake with your answer down here. You see how you're saying, well, look, I had it in the front. Isn't that the same as the top? Well, if you have it in the front and you want to take it to the top, it's going to go there and there, which actually make that plus, and that was not right. The answer should have been negative. They should have both been negative on the top. So if you want to put that negative in the front, you got to make this guy positive, you see. So I wouldn't do that. Just leave the negatives in the top. That's easier. You don't want to mess around with all that stuff. But the main point is negatives in the front are the same as the top, yes, but if there's more than one term in the top, it's got to hit them all. And that would, so therefore, this should have been positive because that negative in the front then would make it negative, and that'd be correct. So if you'd made this positive, you would have been okay. Or if you just leave both negatives in the top, you're okay. But you can't put a negative in the front and leave that negative. That's not correct. I hope that makes sense. All right. Have a good one, Jessica.